Hi, hello. So in this video we are going to see how to access data inside the record instance. So we saw that actually in the previous video, but this one has a trick. We are going to display at runtime a picture that is stored in an attachment field. So if you haven't seen the previous video about the view components and about getting data from a record instance, well, you should have a look at it. And I will try to go a bit faster. I tell that every time. Yeah, it seems to go slower actually. But anyway, so in this example, here is my example, and display picture stored in an attachment field. So if I'm selecting this one, this is picture of John Wick, you can see that I'm displaying, well, the John Wick 2 movie, which is very cool, by the way. So here you can see it's a standard record definition, and I just chose a picture in the attachment field. So how is that working? So a design phase, so you can see here it's a view component, custom view component that is here, and it has three input parameters. The first one is the record definition name. The second one is a picture, and picture is actually the attachment field. And here is the ID. The ID is coming from the record I'm selecting into the grid. So here, for example, I don't have any, but this one has one picture attached. So how is it working? We saw in the previous video display data that how to display an inspector that we provide to you, displaying record definitions. But here you can see a trick. You can see a field picture, and you can see here that picture is actually an attachment from the dummy record definition. But we don't display other fields like stars, impact, and so on because they are not the right type for us. We only want to display attachment fields. So how do we do that? Not like that. So in this one you will get the example display pic in attachment from the sample library. So we have a bit more things in this one. So like the previous record definition, we declare our record definition in the module, and we are going to declare it in px module and in xmodule.js. Then the next step is in config.js, so we declare for module the input parameters. So we have the record definition full name, the field ID, and the record ID. So like we saw in the previous videos, here we declare everything as string, but actually we want to use inspector, meaning specials ways to select the data you want to give to your view component. So we see in this one we have also a design manager service. In our design manager service, so we can see we can find back our three input parameters in Rx data. The first one, like we saw in the previous video, display data, we are using the BMC out of the box Rx inspector definition picker. So we are going to ask the system to give us a list of all the record definitions in the system. But the definition types will be regular record, not join record, for example. But what is interesting is for the field ID, instead of having Rx inspector expression node field, which is standard expressions builder, we have one example sample library inspector display pic, etc., which is actually a custom one because you can create your own inspectors using Innovation Suite. So in our case, what we are interested with is once you select your record definition, see, you want to display the attachment fields from this record definition. So how is it working? You can see here that we have an inspector that has been created. Which is here, which is a directive. So what we do is that we watch the record definition full name, which is here, which is this parameter. So once you select your record definition, you want to call the initials field methods. And the initials fields method is going to get the fields for the record definition you picked up. So which is this method. So here we are going to get the field definition of our record definition, and we are going to tell using Lodash. So Lodash is an external JavaScript framework we are using. So we are going to tell get the field definitions from your record definition full name, but only return the ones that are type attachment. So just get the list of all attachment fields, basically from the record definition that we just selected. So if we are looking at the HTML, because here we are displaying some HTML code, here a select, a drop down. So here the inspector. So the HTML is declared in the template URL. So you can see that actually here we are displaying a tooltip. So here field ID attachment type, which is the option label. And here we are doing ng options. We are building a select with all the fields in data fields. So here we have built the data fields. So here we are displaying every attachment field inside the select. And if we don't have any data in the attachment field, that's where we display there are no attachment fields to select. So this inspector is a bit more elaborate. So we created our own inspector. So once you select your attachment, your record definition, you will see all the attachment field for this record definition. And this code will be launched each time you select a record definition name because of the watch from AngularJS. And the value will be stored inside field ID automatically. And here we can find again our attachment model. So we are our model. And our model is doing pretty much exactly the same thing that we saw in the last video, meaning that in record definition full name, we are storing, so each time the record definition full name is modified, we are going to get the record definition resource. And the record definition resource, we are storing it in record definition full name. That's why in record definition full name, you have the field definitions. So if we are looking at Chrome once again, and for example I'm selecting here and I'm changing for dummy associate and dummy again. Here we have a call to application record definition for com example sample library dummy. And inside the response I have the complete description of my record definition, and I have field definitions containing all the definitions for every field, and one of them being the attachment field. So in the model I'm getting the record definition object and I'm storing it inside record definition full name. In the inspector for the field ID, I'm getting this record definition full name object I have selected previously, and I'm getting the field definitions, and I'm sorting and I'm filtering so we can only return back the field of type attachment. So this one is a bit more complex than the previous example, so let's see how it's working at runtime. So at runtime we still have our HTML, so we can find our information, like the different information, what is record definition, the field ID, record ID, and the picture. And inside my directive, so I'm getting the properties by name, so the input parameters value, which are stored in Rx configuration, properties by name, like we saw in previous videos. So I'm getting the record definition, full name, field ID, record ID. And as we saw in the previous video, so we don't use the same resource. In the previous video, we saw that we used Rx record instance data page resource to get the data. But attachment field is a special type of field. So we are going to use this time Rx record instance attachment resource. So, but the idea is pretty much the same. We are telling the system we want an attachment resource from the record definition. Then we get it. So this time the parameter is the record ID of the record instance. And we are passing as a parameter the field ID of the attachment. So the record ID would be this one, and the field ID would be this one. So you don't see it because in our case you just selected the name, but internally we are going to store the field ID. So that's why also creating custom inspector is more user-friendly for you, because you don't have to remember about the field ID, you just have to select the field name. So once I got my field ID and I got my resource, so I'm doing my get. Once again I got a promise, and when my promise is executed I got my attachment file. And here I'm just using some code I took from Developer Mozilla or from Stack Overflow, and I'm just creating live my object so I can display it inside my HTML, or I can even save it. So here you can see that I'm displaying an image and I'm passing my picture data, which is here. So I'm creating an image object. So one thing also that is interesting in this one is you remember that when I change the value here, automatically it's updated. So how do I do that? So I'm just using a scope watch from AngularJS on the property, on the input parameters record ID. So each time the record ID is modified, I'm getting the picture again for this particular record ID. So this is all for this video, and see you for the next one.